What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Now, we are finally going to be talking about Doom Eternal on the Nintendo Switch, and finally we have an update to discuss about this game, which we have been waiting on seemingly forever to finally play on a Nintendo console. Doom Eternal is quite possibly the game of the year of 2020, at least for me, right up there with Ghost of Tsushima, but it is still coming to the Nintendo Switch. We have confirmation, and from Panic Button we have an update about the game that we're going to discuss in this video, and a secondary piece of information that may explain exactly what has happened to Doom Eternal in this past 2 years since they announced the game was coming. And remember, they announced Doom Eternal simultaneously on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC and Nintendo Switch back in 2018. And of course, we've seen every single piece of that game so far, including its amazing DLC, The Ancient Gods, which already came out, and we have yet to see even one screenshot, one video clip, or any piece of media or preview for the game thus far. So being such a huge game, Doom Eternal is definitely one of the biggest, most anticipated third-party AAA ports on a Nintendo console of all time. Because as we know, the original port of Doom 2016 on the Nintendo Switch was very, very good. In fact, I do think that was the best AAA third-party port on Nintendo Switch so far. So what has happened here with Doom Eternal has been kind of crazy ever since it was announced on the Switch, on MIA completely, and continually the developers of the game, as far as their publishers are concerned, at id Software with Bethesda, they continually say that Doom Eternal is close, very close to be shown on the Nintendo Switch, and they've been saying that ever since it was originally delayed back in early 2020, and they continually said, keep on waiting, we don't know quite yet when we can show it, but it's not going to be too long, it's not going to be that much longer, just a little bit longer and we'll show it. And they keep saying this over and over again, and many people have assumed that the game, quite frankly, may have been canceled, or they keep pushing it back because maybe they've been having some type of very bad development problems with the game, getting it to run on the Switch. Because as you can see from the footage I'm showing you here, Doom Eternal is an amazing looking game, and it pushes tech. Even on high-spec PCs, they can crank the settings all the way up and make the game look absolutely amazing. But it should be noted that the game does scale down really well to lower spec systems and PCs, and of course it runs on Xbox One, the original model. And they promised, as far as Panic Button was concerned, that they could get this game running on the Switch at 720p and 30 frames per second. And I did a video earlier in the year highlighting what the game could look like running at 720p 30 frames per second on the lowest possible settings on the PC. So if you do want to check that out, I'll put the link in the description. But basically, on the low settings on PC at 720p 30 frames per second, the game does not look that bad, to be honest with you. It looks pretty good, a little bit blurry, a little bit low res like 720p would look like, but it certainly looks doable at that resolution and frame rate on the Nintendo Switch. But ever since 2019, we actually really haven't heard much from Panic Button at all. We've heard a lot from id Software talking for Panic Button. We had that interview from them last year in 2019 when they talked about what the settings were going to be for the Switch port of Doom Eternal, but we didn't really hear much from Panic Button themselves about how they were doing with the game. So finally, back on November 5th, we have an update from Panic Button on Doom Eternal on the Nintendo Switch, and it's a very interesting update because they say quite a few different things here that is very telling about what's going on with the game, and even quite possibly what the current status is of the game as far as what they're doing with it. There's some interesting hints here. So back on November 5th, 2020, the official Panic Button Twitter page tweeted out, it said that we are excited to reveal that we have been hard at work with Playground Games to bring Forza Horizon 4 to Xbox Series X and S. We can't wait for everyone to hit the open roads in this version of the game, which is optimized to harness the power of the new generation of Xbox. Now you're probably saying to yourself, no, wait a second, I thought this was going to be about Doom Eternal on the Nintendo Switch. What is going on here with them talking about them helping to port Forza Horizon 4 to the Xbox Series X and S? That's a very interesting question, right? Because as we know, the next generation of consoles starts this week. Xbox Series X and S release this week, and PlayStation 5 releases this week. So here we have Panic Button getting this port of Forza Horizon 4 working or optimized for the Xbox Series X and S for Microsoft and for the Xbox, getting it ready to be optimized and released with that version for the launch of those consoles. And as we know, for Nintendo, it's been reported extremely heavily for the past year plus that Nintendo is working on a new, more powerful Switch that's going to be releasing with its own slew of new games, which was originally reported on as starting production in the first half of 2020 to be released by holiday of 2020 by Digitimes, as we covered here on this channel. And then, of course, it was updated, that report, later on from Bloomberg and from other Taiwan sources in production, that this new Switch was actually pushed back to start production in the latter half of 2020 to then be released in the early part of 2021, quite possibly around when their fiscal year ended in March of 2021. And as we've talked about multiple times here on this channel, if they did in fact originally plan to have this released by holiday 2020, for reasons that should be pretty obvious, the entire year of 2020 has been a complete skip type of year due to the global pandemic. Even the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S are launching with features missing on the consoles that will be added later in 2021. Multiple games have been delayed. I think I've counted over 7 games have been delayed on the Nintendo Switch to 2021. And they basically have skipped a lot of the holiday season as well on the Nintendo Switch. The big holiday game, quote unquote, that Nintendo has this year is Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, which is releasing November 20th. And it is actually not even a first-party Nintendo game. It is being made by Koei Tecmo. So it is a third-party game using a first-party IP. Nintendo themselves does not actually have any first-party games scheduled for release in holiday of 2020. They have completely moved and skipped the third, fourth quarter time periods for the 2020, and they have moved whatever they have planned, obviously what we've been talking about here for quite a while, to 2021, which, as you may recall, back in February, March, April, and May, that 3 to 4 month time period for Nintendo was extremely slow. There's basically nothing going on at all. They were extremely quiet. It was almost like dead silence from Nintendo from all that time forward in 2020. So due to the various complexities of making a new piece of hardware, new software for that hardware basically, and of course updated software from the current generation, if these reports continue to be repeated over and over and over and over again, obviously there's got to be some truth to it. And now we have developers obviously hinting at them, as we've been talking about in previous videos in the past months or so. And here we have Panic Button confirming that they're not in fact going to be releasing Doom Eternal on the Nintendo Switch in 2020. They actually have been prioritizing another game, which was this Forza Horizon 4 port for the Xbox Series X and S, because they know that those consoles are coming out in holiday 2020, and no doubt Microsoft has paid them to make sure this game is ready for the launch of those consoles. So what has happened to Doom Eternal then, right? So a follower of mine, his name is Birdman, he tweeted to Panic Button, and of course, like we talked about before, Panic Button did not have to reply to this comment, yet they did anyway, which hints to me that this game is going to be shown soon, either for the Nintendo Switch or for this new Switch and the Nintendo Switch simultaneously, very, very soon. So let's see what he said here. He asked, "Where's Doom Eternal on the Switch?" And this was in reply to what Panic Button stated about their Forza Horizon 4 port. And Panic Button replied to him, "We are still hard at work on the project," quote unquote project. They didn't call it Doom Eternal for the Switch, they called it the project. "We are still hard at work on the project and excited for everyone to enjoy it. We have multiple teams working on separate projects at Panic Button, even more than we have announced." Now, Panic Button saying that they have multiple teams working on separate projects at Panic Button is not really a surprise. However, it's interesting though that not only did they prioritize Forza Horizon 4 before releasing Doom Eternal on the Switch, but they also refer to it as the project, and the project is Doom Eternal on Nintendo. Let's just call it on Nintendo. And hypothetically for a moment, let's just say there was no reports about a new Switch coming very, very, very soon, and that basically this was it, and all Nintendo had was just this current Switch. What would be in Nintendo's best interest to have released by holiday 2020 on the current Nintendo Switch? Don't you think it would be Doom Eternal? Because Nintendo doesn't have really any other big AAA games for the holiday season on the current Nintendo Switch. They have Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, but they don't really have a big AAA, big budget game, and Doom Eternal would fit that perfectly if they released it on the Nintendo Switch in time for the holidays. In fact, they did that with Doom 2016. Back in 2017, they released that, I believe, in late November on the Nintendo Switch, and it sold very well. This would be a perfect opportunity for them to release Doom Eternal in time for the holidays as well, because there's nothing else really from AAA third party. Yet they are not doing that, and Panic Button was instead taken and used to port Forza Horizon 4 instead for the Xbox Series X and S, with Nintendo taking a skip on the holiday season, which tells me that Doom Eternal, because of Panic Button replying to them like this, it tells me that Doom Eternal is most likely going to be shown, let's just be honest here, on the new Nintendo Switch. They're going to be showing in early 2021. And of course, they're going to release it still on the current Nintendo Switch as well. But keep something in mind here with how these upgraded consoles work. Think about PlayStation 4 Pro and the PlayStation 4. Whenever they show brand new footage of games or brand new games are announced for that console, they always show what version? They always show the PlayStation 4 Pro version of the game running, because they want to put it in its best light possible. Now, Doom Eternal has been in development quite a long time for Nintendo. Again, they call it the project here, right? So the best opportunity for showing this game for the very first time running on a Nintendo console, in my opinion, I'm sure you would agree, would be to show it on this brand new Nintendo Switch that has been heavily rumored and reported to be shown in very early 2021. And it does sound like they're getting really close and ready to show it very soon, because otherwise they would have just ignored him. Because I've seen many people ask about Doom Eternal on the Nintendo Switch to Panic Button directly on Twitter, and they have been ignored completely. Even much bigger people with more followers than Birdman here does. Birdman went ahead and asked that question, and Panic Button decided to reply to him and confirm that they are still hard at work on the project and they're excited for everyone to enjoy it. So it's very interesting here to see that. We kind of have a multi-tiered update here, because when you look at it this way, it shows that their priorities are kind of set. They have a plan here in place about how these games are going to be released. It looks like there was never really any plan in 2020 at some point to release Doom Eternal on the Nintendo Switch. Possibly as soon as plans changed or plans were adjusted a bit for this new Switch to be released, maybe at first in 2020 and then moved to early 2021. That's when you kept seeing them continually saying, oh, just a little bit longer, oh, just a little bit longer. You'll eventually see it, you'll eventually see it. Oh, we don't know yet when we're going to show Doom Eternal on the Switch. It won't be that long though, won't be that long. And they kept doing that over and over and over again all throughout 2020, started back in the early part of the year, even before the pandemic started. They said it wasn't going to be delayed that much longer after the release of Doom Eternal in March. And in fact, now it's been something like over 6 months, and we still have not seen any footage or release date for it. But there is strong hope from Panic Button from this update from them that we are going to be seeing it very soon. So I think we can start to get a little bit excited about Doom Eternal to be shown on Nintendo soon, because as we know, that game really likes that 60 frames per second, right? If they can get 60 frames per second running on this new Switch with Doom Eternal, and you can play it on the go, that's an instant win and instant buy for that game, and it's going to be pushing those sales even more so on Nintendo and their platforms. And granted, 720p 30 frames per second worked pretty well on the original Doom 2016 on the Nintendo Switch, but 60 frames is what we want to have in a game like that. It's extremely fast paced, and Doom Eternal, the Ancient Gods, is even faster than the original Doom Eternal, and that was already way faster than Doom 2016. So 60 frames per second would really benefit that game and how it plays for Nintendo. And I really hope that fans do get a chance to play it at 60 frames per second if that does become the case, because everyone should play this game. Everyone should have the opportunity to play it. It's a fantastic game. It's a 10 out of 10. Everyone on all consoles should play Doom Eternal. I did a live stream of it back when it first came out, so I know you guys know that this game is going to be awesome. That's why we're looking forward to it so much to play on Nintendo platform, because these type of games don't always show up for a Nintendo console. So when they do show up, you want to support them, and especially with a game this good like Doom Eternal. Alright guys, that's it for this video. If you did enjoy it, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. And I'll talk to you very soon in the next video. Have a great day.